Welcome to the Family Life Chapel series, something we do in collaboration with the chapel programming and the CMR, and it's a two-part series, and it's awesome. Every year, this annual event happens where we spend a whole week talking about relationships. They're so important, the way in which God designed us and made us, and then when the fall came in and created isolation and loneliness. So we've partnered together to create this series so that we can talk about things like friendships and emotional boundaries, and check out the other video that we did on emotional boundaries and dating, and you can find that also on Canvas.
Yeah, so I'm Alisa Grace. This is my husband, Dr. Chris Grace. He is a professor here at Biola University, and together we direct the CMR, and that stands for Center for Marriage and Relationships. So we want to invite you to go check out our website at cmr.biola.edu, because on there we just have a wealth of information. We have our podcast called The Art of Relationships, which is hosted by Chris as well as Dr. Tim Muehlhoff. We also have free relationship advice, and that's any kind of relationship. It can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, parent, roommate, whatever. Just come and get free advice on that. How about that? Right price, isn't it? And then we also have blogs, video clips, just incredible amount of information. So we want you to come check that out at cmr.biola.edu.
So let's get started. We're going to be looking at a couple of passages today. Our talk is on the friendship advantage, the 5 signs of a good friendship and a good relationship. So if you want, turn to John. The Gospel of John will be in 13 and 15 today, and we'll let you know exactly where we're at and what we're going to be doing. In fact, why don't you turn right now to John 13, 34, and 35. Many of you all know this verse, and it talks about, at least, a new commandment he gives us.
Absolutely. It says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another.
And then we'll talk about John 15 in a passage. You can start in 12. I'll let you turn there. In John 15, 12, it says, my command is this, that you love one another, right? That you love one another as just as I have loved you. And greater love has no end than this, than to lay down one's life for his friend. And that says, you are my friends if you do what I command. No longer do I call you servants, but I call you friends. What an amazing passage. So what does it mean? So I'm a psychologist, and my wife and I speak all over the place on relationships. And I think one of the coolest things that we have found is that there are 5 qualities of a good relationship and a good friendship that Jesus modeled. In fact, we take it from his life of what he did. He served and he laid down his life. And so we're going to kind of go through that. But let's look at some of these words, Lisa, in there.
What I'd like us to do is to just pause for a minute. Let's just pause and think about the incredible significance of what Jesus just said in that passage in John 15, where he said, greater love has no one than this, than someone laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. This is just an incredibly stunning statement offering friendship from the one who is the omnipotent creator of the entire universe. That is incredible, because if you think about it, previously in the Old Testament, there were only 2 instances where humans were referred to as friends of God, and that was Moses and that was Abraham. And so now for the first time, we have Jesus inviting us as obedient believers into this very exclusive friendship club. And I hope that we can really sit with that and grasp the incredible significance of that statement.
Yeah, it really does stand out as powerful when you stop and think about this. Here's the interesting thing. That Greek word, when you talk about friends, comes from the Greek noun, which is phileo, right? And phileo is where we get the word philos, and that's, of course, the word for friend in Greek. And so you think about Philos, or Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. What it means is when Jesus invited us in to be friends, he told us, here's how you do it. I'm going to show you. In fact, in the previous chapters, he said, here's how I do it. I'm going to wash their feet. I'm going to ultimately suffer for them. I'm going to reveal myself to them. And so interestingly enough, all research is finding that good friends, good marriages, have at their core this amazing deep friendship. In fact, these 5 things we're going to talk about we'll find at the core of almost all relationships. So let's watch this. There's a cool little commercial we'd like you to see from Pepsi Max, and so take a look at it.
Mr. Goodman? What makes you think you're qualified for this job?
Oh! Ah! Stop punching me!
Stop punching me.
Please, sir, no! Don't throw me!
Not that fish.
Don't touch me! Keep your hands off of me! Don't throw me out!
Nice.
Here it is, huh? Get it?
It's time, gotta get in the groove. It's easy to just let your body move. I'm a love guru, your mother won't.
All right, what's so funny about that and what's so interesting, I love the guy's expression.
That's my favorite commercial in the world.
Yeah,
I love that.
I do. I love their expressions on their faces. And what it would be awesome to have friends like that, where you could do fun things and go out, and no doubt they love and laugh with each other, but they also have each other's back. And so it's a cool little thing to think about. As we think about this, one of the cool features that we have that we know is when friendship is something, for example, that we would call this idea of affection. And C.S. Lewis, in fact, at one time said affection is responsible for 9/10 of whatever happiness there is. 9/10 of all of our happiness is related to friendship. And check this out. One of the leading researchers in marriage said if he had to summarize in one word what makes for a good marriage, it's the word friendship. So that's pretty powerful in and of itself. So Lisa, let's look at the 5 things that we would encourage you students out there at Ouachita Baptist to do to become friends and to evaluate your friendships. And I would pause here and say, remember, Lisa, there's something that God did in the creation of humans and in the creation of the world that's pretty powerful out of Genesis.
Yeah, it's fabulous because when you think about it, friendship was God's remedy for human loneliness. If you go back to Genesis, at the account of creation, every time at the end of the day after God created something, he said, "This is good." Until he got to man, and he looked at man and he said, "Oh, he's alone. This isn't good." And so the incredible thing is that the very first problem in the brand new world was not sin, it was isolation. It was loneliness. That's pretty incredible to point to the way that we are created as humans in God's image to be in relationship with God and then with each other.
Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, there's some very almost sad numbers. Back in the 1980s, the average number of confidants that a person had was about 4. 4 confidants that the average person had. Today, that number is down to about 2. We call a confidant, someone who's an intimate, a very close friend, someone that we could share our hearts with. It's down to 2. And sadly, 25% of Americans list that they have no friends, no confidants like that. So I think that's really kind of an idea that played out from the very beginning, and it's from our enemy to keep us isolated. So here's what we want you to do. Ready? If you're at Ouachita Baptist dealing with Relationship Week, and you're having a hard time making connections, find a way to reach out to those who might be isolated. Find a way to have friendships and then be able to evaluate them using these kinds of processes that we're going to show you and talk about. So let's start with the first one, Lisa, that identifies good relationships.
Yeah, so good friendships frequently laugh together. And when you think about that, that means they really truly enjoy being together. They get each other. They share the same sense of humor. And like it makes me think of when we were very first dating. And yeah, that was a long time ago. But we were long distance. He was in Colorado and I was in Texas. And so all of our dating time was on the phone. And we would spend hours talking and laughing and just enjoying being together on the phone. We could have talked.
Oh, forever.
Oh, forever. It was so fun, really fun. We just delighted in each other.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I think of Zephaniah 3:17. If we want to love like Jesus, remember Jesus said, "Love others the way I love you."
Yeah.
So if we want to love like Jesus does, like God does, let's look at what they did. And so Zephaniah 3:17 says that God will rejoice over you.
Yeah.
He rejoices over you with gladness. He exalts over you with loud singing. Have you ever been so happy and so in love and just having a great time and you are just bopping along and just singing and shouting? And to think that that's how God feels when he looks at us, that's
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And in this passage, as we recognize it, he says, I've called you my friends, and so that my joy, he says earlier, may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. So that's in 15 verse 11, which is interesting because he talks about joy and what it's like, and his joy and his loving, it basically means that they have fun together and they laugh together. What's the second one, Lee?
And so number 2, not only do they laugh together, but good friends calmly discuss issues or problems or disagreements. And so what verse does that call to mind for you?
Yeah, when you think about calmly discussing things and being able to do this in a way that it is, I don't know, something that you can do together in a way. It talks about how we take our concerns, our joys, and we cast them upon the Lord, for example, cast all your anxieties upon him. And then it also just talks about the way in which, for example, he says, greater love has no end than this, to lay down his life for one's friends, right? But to love each other means basically to treat someone like a friend, right? And so what we do and what we talk about is very cool ideas. So Alisa and I get to do things together, and sometimes we disagree, right? And oftentimes we're like, wait, I want to go this way, I want to go this way. And so how do you do that in a way in which you're able to calm your emotions and be able to still talk?
Well, James gives us a really good idea of how to do this in chapter 1, verse 19.
Yeah, it's a great verse.
He says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry.
Yeah.
And then in Proverbs 18:13, it says, to answer before listening, that is folly and it's shame.
Yeah.
And so what's a good thing to do when you're in the middle of that disagreement or in that conflict, to be able to be calm and discuss it calmly? You want to ask yourself, before you ever get in that situation, do a little introspection. Ask yourself, do I listen well when I'm upset? Am I willing to be quick to listen and slow to speak, slow to defend myself, slow to explain myself, and am I willing to listen calmly?
Yeah, I think that's great. And by the way, remember now, laughing together, calmly discussing things, these are 5 signs of a good friendship. Research from a guy named Scott Stanley out of the University of Virginia, when he worked with the National Marriage Project, found these 5 things identified the most happiest marriages. So not only does it apply to friendships, it applies to dating relationships, your good friends, whether or not they're, something that leads to marriage or not, it's oftentimes just
even
the sign.
roommates.
Yeah. So
even roommates.
So you calmly discuss ideas together, and you're able to do that in a way that honors each other. What's the third one, Lisa?
Yeah, number 3. Number 3 is that good friends confide in each other.
Yeah.
Now, I love this one because what this is explaining to us is that this requires a certain willingness to be open with each other, to be vulnerable with each other, willing to go deep and to share some intimate details of your life, your cares, your concerns, your worries, your fears. But it connotes an openness and a willingness to do that.
Yeah, and let me just say here, another thing it involves is being vulnerable. And I think by being vulnerable, another word that's very important, and especially in friendships and the way Jesus used this back in the first century, when he talks about to love each other as I have loved you, remember, Jesus expressed a lot of vulnerability by talking very frankly. In fact, we would say, if you speak honestly to somebody and say, brother, I'm concerned about you, or sister, man, can I just talk about how often you're playing video games at night, and this really worries me because I'm afraid it's being detrimental. And can we just talk about that? I love you so much. Being vulnerable in that way is another way that you confide in each other in a trust. And that's part of the word friendship too back then. In fact, friendship back then connoted not just love, but to speak honestly and openly and not with flattery. And so they all knew, the listeners of this knew exactly what Jesus was saying.
Yeah. And a certain element of that, I think that's a great point, but to be able to speak frankly and openly, there has to be an element of trust in there. Yeah. And so you have to be a trustworthy friend, and your friend needs to also prove that they're trustworthy. So you have to really be wise in the people that you choose to hold close to you as your confidants, to confide in. And I love this quote that Tim Keller says. Tim Keller says that to be loved but not known is comforting, but it's superficial and shallow. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved, well, that's a lot like being loved by God, which is the whole point of our talk today, is to love your friends like Jesus loves you.
Yeah, I think Tim Keller got that quote from me. I'm not sure, but...
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
He called you up for it, didn't he?
Yeah. Hey, Chris, can you tell me about being fully known and fully loved? I said, well, Tim, sure. But anyway, Lisa, I think that's an awesome kind of concept. And then the fourth one is that good friends do what? They work well together on projects. There's something about working well together on projects, whether you're married, whether you're friends, or you're doing this class thing together. And you find that person that you kind of connect with, that you're in sync with, you kind of know what they're doing, you like what they're doing, you laugh together. It's almost as if there's this kind of synchronous flow to each other. And I think that's kind of a sign. So you can look at not only laughing together and confiding in each other, right? And just doing these other kinds of ways of working well together. And one of those is doing projects well together.
Yeah, it's almost like a sense of cooperation and a mutual give and take. And Chris, talk a little bit about what's involved when we talk about the accepting influence and the importance of accepting influence from someone else.
Yeah, one of the key variables when you all work well together, look at this. Do your friends listen to you? Does a friend that you want to be with, is it somebody that accepts your opinion or accepts you as who you are, but they also accept influence from you? So you're able to say, hey, let's try this. What do you think? And if the other person, no, I want to do this, they probably are not enacting in some ways this idea. So it means basically that our best marriages that we study, that we look at and have found, are those in which, in particular, spouses accept influence from each other, but so do friends in a good relationship. So that's one way to evaluate your relationship, is do they accept influence from you and from each other?
Yeah. And so number five is expectation of longevity. And what that means is that you go into this friendship with the idea of, hey, we are friends for life.
Yeah.
Now, this is not going to be every single friend that you make, right? But we're talking about somebody that can go the distance with you, somebody that's willing to invest and put in time with you. Like in Jeremiah 31:3, God says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And then Jesus even says, gosh, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I am in it to go the distance.
Yeah, and that's how you're supposed to love like Jesus, right? And at least it doesn't mean that you do all your friendships forever and ever, because like you said, there are some for
a season and some friends for a reason.
Yeah, some friends. And so however, Jesus is saying the way we love each other when we do make a confidant and we do find that person, there is a sense of commitment and there is a sense of, I will be here and I'm going to do the best to make this relationship one of the best things that we can have and do. So
absolutely. So that expectation of longevity. So Chris, as we wrap up and we come to a close here, how would you summarize those 5 signs of that friendship advantage, the 5 signs of a good friendship?
Yeah, so you have the 5. What I would say in summary then is do this. Do not isolate yourself. Relationship week is a great week to reach out to people that might be on the periphery or on the outside. And if you yourself are finding COVID or other things are making you stay in your room all of the time or not being able to connect, find somebody. Do not isolate. Instead, reach out, make these efforts, and evaluate your friendships and relationships this way.
Absolutely. Be a quality friend. Laugh together, confide in each other, work well together, have that mutual give and take in your friendships, and expect it to last, last a lifetime.
Yeah, in other words, love your friends like Jesus loves you. It's good to be with you. You guys enjoy your relationship week there, and we'll talk to you soon.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.